So, this full moon is in Gemini. They call it a cold moon. For Western astrologers, or any who are into Western astrology, would qualify this full moon to be in Cancer. However, we're actually going to speak about the genuine placement of the moon in the sky, which is called sidereal. Let us bring it down so we can explain this to you. So this is a cold full moon, obviously because it's getting closer to the cold winter and it's very cold. And obviously the moon is cold by nature. So this full moon is going to be pretty potent. If you watch the segment of the new moon, which was in Scorpio, in the real sky, you will see the quality of this full moon. Now, I haven't seen no one speak about what I'm about to explain, but it's going to perhaps release something which I am not certain what the effects would be. But all I know, it's going to be a generational effect and a very potential deep effect, perhaps. What is that? Well, the full moon is in Gemini. And at this portion in time, we find in the UK, it begins around 3 in the morning. So the full moon is around, let me just double check. It is specifically 3:28 a.m. on the 30th of December. So literally early morning. In this kind of time, about 11 hours from then, the planet Pluto goes into Capricorn and will never return back into Sagittarius in the real sky. So this means that there is a major change occurring on this full moon. Now, generational planets tend to be very subtle, and so the effects are going to be felt on a global scale. On the full moon, remember, the new moon was in Scorpio. Scorpio governs Pluto, but Mars as its personal planet. Okay? So as this full moon hits in Gemini, Pluto decides to move pow into Capricorn. So it leaves this opposition. Remember, a full moon is about oppositions. So the sun and the moon are oppose each other. So the energy becomes like a tug of war. That's what a full moon is, right? So the tug of war is that the sun is in Sag, Pluto is in Sag, right? And the moon obviously is in Gemini, which is the opposite sign. Now Pluto is about leaving that previous element, which has been Sagittarius, this long journey, which is what it's been on for the last 26 years. And so it's now moving into Capricorn. So this brings a new order into place, a new complete order into place. So this happens 12 hours from then, from that full moon. So the energy becomes released. So the energy becomes released, and the release is some type of information. Now, remember, Gemini governs communication and articulation, speaking, as well as mental studying, understanding, going deeper into the subjects of the mind, perhaps. Why? It is the jack of all trade. It can seek many things. Plus, Mercury, which is the planet which governs Gemini, is in Sagittarius, which deals with higher education. And so there's higher wisdom which are being spoken into the world. So people are thinking with their higher mind now. Okay? So basically this Mercury energy is being felt from a higher perspective of thinking, being in Gemini, which is where the full moon is. So the Gemini deals with the actual thinking, actual mind, actual intellect, actual responder. So during this day, on this full moon, you may find the urge to sprinkle new ideas, to study perhaps, to do some research, to travel. You know, when we're talking about traveling, we're talking about short journeys, because Gemini is the one that takes on these short journeys, that calculates things. So it's also the aspect which connects to higher form of mathematics in some ways. You know, calculating very rapidly. It deals with that mind side of things. So let us reveal this. So in this placement, in traditional astrology, it's in Ardha. Ardha Nakshatra is a portion of the sky which are the fixed position, which are directing the force of the vibration of a moon particular placement. So Ardha is associated with Rudra or Rudra. Rudra is the beads. Now Shiva wears these beads, and they are called Rudra beads. They have 108 Rudra beads, and the Rudra beads are beads of transformation, to dissolve. You know, so Shiva would recite his mantras on 108 beads. These 108 beads connect to your breathing. The moment you start reciting mantras and complete a round, which is 108, which is associated with the amount of time it takes for you to relax. Okay, so what it does, it penetrates the psyche, and basically what it means is purification, to purify the mind. This is a time to purify the mind, to purify the thoughts, to release certain things in the psyche. Now this coincides with, there's a square with Chiron which is going on during this full moon. So this is also releasing certain emotional wounds that may have affected you, i.e. Corona and etc. Although it's still happening, it still has a wound which has been left, which can be associated to the other side of Saturn, because it's almost like leaving a wound. So the wound is there. It's been wounding humanity. So basically, there's a connection with this full moon with that. Okay, so there's a square there. Now, okay, what we find also is that the connection between the full moon is very strongly connected to the new moon. Now, without going too off the path, I'm actually going to touch upon something that most astrologers don't really go into, and perhaps they can add into the quality of astrology. We will kind of put it in there to kind of make you see that there's a greater picture than just 12 signs. Now, the 13th sign that is not actually placed in our zodiac sphere is Ophiuchus. And Ophiuchus is the 13th sign. In our last new moon, which I didn't talk about, it was connected to Ophiuchus. Ophiuchus is the healing serpent. It's a time of healing. So this particular new moon that just occurred during the solstice was associated to healing. Now, healing and bringing in the love vibration. Now, if you've watched some of the videos previously, what I was talking about, the new moons and full moons, and the connection between Libra being, Venus being in Libra, was all the bringing up of the heart and building up the heart to reach to a different state, to a higher state, to the divine state of love. Now, this was actually the connection here, which led right until the 21st of December, which many people felt that it was going to be the end of something. Now, with my own eyes, I just knew that they were playing about with the transit of transportation, you know, things connected to traveling. And so it occurred. So they did announce it on the news, and they made the UK one of the highest countries which, you know, migrated the virus according to their statements. So obviously they utilize the solstice energy because we're going deep into the universe. At that very time, I made sure I channeled as much love into some of my work so I could basically bring it out there. And this is the same energy that they're utilizing on the reverse. Whoever is they, you know, at the end of the day, there's nobody against you. You are against your own self. Everything else is a distraction. Okay? So um now with this full moon, okay, that auspicious energy is a healing energy which comes in. This is a time to make the adjustment. So it's connected to Chiron in some ways. As Chiron is also creating a square at the moment with this full moon. And so it's agitating the energy. So the new moon, which was in Scorpio, but you know, obviously I'm just kind of touching on and adding the Ophiuchus energy, which is obviously a different perspective, you know, because we could only speculate when it comes to astrology. We could never say, okay, this is it. Though you can, but there is so much depth to astrology that you need to go beyond to transcend. So it's almost like looking at the microscopic viewpoint of water and looking at the sacred geometry that water makes, and then looking beyond it and going beyond and beyond it and beyond it. And so this is what astrology is, right, in so many words. So let us go back into the full moon, and then I will touch upon the deeper details of it and how astrology works in that format in relationship to that. Especially because astrology is actually an Atlantis science, you know. It's a mental science, a higher nature science of how the whole Atlantis age kind of kicked in, because at that peak, that's when we knew the points of the whole cycle of astrology, because we then calculated the 26,000 year cycle. So we was able to notify how the next 26,000 years were going to be. So this is when the age reached its peak. Now, obviously, this full moon drags all the energies of the solstice and of the new moon, which built right into this full moon. So the energy hasn't been released yet. This is where I'm making this video a little bit early. You know, normally I like to make it on the day of the full moon or on the day of the new moon. But because it hasn't been released yet, the release is on the new moon. At the point of the full moon, sorry, this is when the energy is released. So it's released in Gemini. So the information which is known will be heard. And the energy of the solstice, which is connected to Jupiter and Saturn, are going to be released. Now, Saturn and Jupiter are at the 7th degree, which creates a cycle. For all those who were lucky enough to see Saturn and Jupiter conjunct, congratulations, because there was a very strong release of energy. Now, you can still get the connection because they are still conjunct. But because now they are at their 7th degree, they complete a cycle of 7, which is connected to the 7 days of the week. And the 7th planet, which is Saturn, obviously the last in the week, basically. So basically, this is where the conjunction of the biggest planets are being felt. Saturn the longest in its journey, and Jupiter the biggest of them all. So the teacher is receiving knowledge from the higher Lord of authority, which is Saturn, of course. So this is the time to really connect with those planets, because obviously these will affect you on a business level, on a yearly level, on a deep mental level, as well as a psychological and painful, perhaps, or a knowledgeable and understanding level, because they play a strong connection to your karma. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say. So the energy is going to be reverberated right into the vibration of this full moon. So now, without further ado, let's go into the full moon to explain that how we're taking that energy of the solstice, of these planets, which are the teachers of our universe. So what happens? The energy gets released into Gemini. The Gemini energy is saying it's time to release. What is it that is being released? Gemini obviously governs communication, it governs speech, it governs transportation as well. It governs the short thinking mind. So perhaps there might be some news that you're going to hear from someone, from a friend, from a group of people, because we're talking about the Pluto energy, which is materializing in a generational thing. So perhaps there might be a generational news effect being released, right? From a deeper perspective. Now, if we look at Pluto, because obviously it's going to be connected to that, because it's going to be connected to the structure and your structure in your world. So when we look at Pluto, it represents the point of change, the final point of change. It's rebirth, it's deep, it's secret, it's mysticism. So it's going to be released in that perspective. Okay. So the secret information might come out during this full moon. An interesting full moon, because in the end, it's going to be felt in the sign of Cancer. Now, the sign afterwards is the point of release, though the sign is in the release. So being in Gemini is going to release speech. In the end, the full moon releases through words, through emotions, sorry. First through words, then it's going to be felt as an emotion. So there might be some family orientation the next day, which is going to be connected to releasing some kind of nurturing energy into the world. So that's where the interconnection between Gemini and Cancer full moon plays a part. But it's actually in Gemini. I just want to clarify this. It's actually in Gemini. Now Mars will be and is in Aries. So there's a bit of a kind of clarity in relationship to what is going on. The clarity is that, people have a clearer understanding and are more driven by action and just being more in a productive and active kind of state of thinking, because Aries deals with activity, action, war. Obviously it governs the metal iron. So we're dealing with a lot of like action in that respect. It deals with action. So it's fixed energy. It's not fixed, but it's everywhere, but it's active energy. So, so the focus is about, war, attacks, or not even just war, it's about direction. I need to put my direction across. So Mars is at home, Saturn is also at home. Um, and so what we find also is that it's going to be a very interesting month, pretty tense month, January, because, um, well, Mars is going to be squaring Saturn, and obviously Mars and Saturn are brothers in astrology. And there's going to be a bit of tension between brothers, So this means that, people might get into like a battleship, perhaps. The wise might have an issue with the youngsters. So there might be this kind of squaring kind of effect coming in with the effects of January. And obviously that will go deeper into the aspect of structure. There might be a forceful change of the structure which is going to take place, like a resistance. Remember that, because Pluto also governs Mars by nature, and Uranus is in Aries, and Uranus is about humanity. So it's almost like there's a reaction that comes from humanity, because it's all in this kind of expanding kind of state of just taking action. So humanity is taking action suddenly because it's Uranus. It's the new. It's the new geno. It's the new mind state. It's the new thoughts. So that's in place with this this full moon. So it's all about information and speaking your values, and connecting with friends, perhaps taking those short trips and short journeys, dissolving the mind. It's not a good time to get married. Obviously we know that it's not a good time, but it's not a good time to get married during this full moon naturally. And also doing any specific religious ceremonies is also not wise to do. Now, okay, there's a deeper layer because it's also ruled by the North Node. So the North Node brings confusion. Now, the North Node, when I mean it's ruled by the North Node, I mean the place called Arda, which is in Gemini, this placement in a specific sky, which is fixed, as its star is showing the North Node. The North Node is also connected to the poles or the North Pole. And there's a lot more activity which happens within these vibration of these polar energy, because we're dealing with the true stars which don't change like the zodiac signs. Because in astrology, the zodiac signs, you don't see all the zodiac signs throughout the whole year. You only see them throughout a portion of the year. That's something that you may not probably know about astrology. But this is when you seek and go deeper and look into astronomy, which makes more clarification and more sense, because now you're dealing with the true science of astrology, because you're looking at both. You can't be an astrologer and just think that you just read it from a textbook and a software. You also have to study and look at the heavens to identify and understand what they mean. Okay, so the pole star is strongly interconnected with the wave and the current, the energy that circulates throughout our universe and our sphere. Now, these stars have more of an effect based upon my research. I've just managed to get this information. They have more of an effect on you than the actual constellations, the zodiac signs. The reason for this is because they don't change like the sun. The sun rises and sets. The north or the pole star, or the north node chart reading is a different form. That gives you a fixed understanding of the energies which come in. Okay, so the Kala Sopa, which is connected to the transits of what's been happening in our world, and without kind of just taking you off, the Kala Sopa are very strongly interconnected with the effects of the virus, which started around February when it affected many of us, and then ended, not ended, but transmutated and eased off a little bit and then went back into it. This is all to do with these transits. Now, these are when it's connected to that ecliptic energy, right, in the sky. And so that creates an effect. So with these poles, they have a future effect. And the future effects are very actual and very precise. They pull one into a direction which kind of sucks you in. Because the North Node sucks you in by nature. It's an illusion. It creates illusion. And this is why Arda in that placement creates illusion. So this is why it's about dissolving the confusion. And the confusion is Maya. Now Maya is the world that we've been living in for a little while. We've seen the reality now because we have 22 or 2020 vision. We have the real vision. And basically, with this placement, it brings us into a deeper understanding of our minds and how the mind really should be seeing things. Now, Gemini also governs the throat. Perhaps this is why I just keep coughing, but I've put on some incense and that's probably making some effects. It deals with the throat. So I recommend during this season to protect the throat, because the North Node can bring confusion and can create colds and flus also. So this is the time to basically, strengthen the throat by taking some black seed oil, you know, and strengthening your immune system, and all of those major simple tools during this full moon, you know, because obviously it's the release of that energy which is coming in. So I guess that's pretty much it for this full moon. I'm keeping this video short today. I wanted to kind of release that. But the key is to pay attention to Pluto, because Pluto is the final remedy to this year. And remember that Pluto is like a serpent. Pluto is a serpent, and it deals with the final tactic of change. And for those who didn't observe that, we saw the Jupiter and Saturn as our great teachers, which are in our firmament, which harnesses this sphere and allows us to move in this realm and governs the 7 days of the week. But Pluto, the outer planet, is the final, we could say, drip, because this nakshatra, or this placement in the sky, is associated with the teardrop. So tears to dissolve. The tears are being dissolved out, and the insight is being given through the teardrop and through change. So let us see what the information or the teardrop is about to show us. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even give you some advices on what you can do during this full moon. I know we've gone a bit off time. Let me just kind of just give you some insight. So what you can do, because it's Gemini and it deals with the thoughts, a great time to start doing certain mantras which would basically be connected to this placement, this Ardha placement. Now, the way you can do this, you can mimic the heavens and mimic the symbolic representation, which means that you get a set of beads which have 108 beads perhaps, or find some beads and recite a mantra or something that you want to let go of, or you know, because it's about letting go. When we're dealing with the full moon, the energy is released, so it's releasing. Before the full moon, it's built in. So releasing is the time to release what it is that you want to release out. And so if you want to release something out from you, then begin chanting something that you want to release out. Perhaps a mantra that you want to create, or a word that you would like to speak about. Say that so then the mind can register it, and then that will allow it to dissolve. And remember, whatever you release right now is going to be felt for a long time, because we are in a deep center and a deep state of change. And always remember this, that whatever is happening in the world, don't worry about that. Worry about what's happening inside of you, and everything will take care of itself. If you work on yourself, the distraction of the world would never exist. But again, everyone's on their own journey and their own path. And so that means that it may take many, many lifetimes for those to understand this. The reason why is that the moment you focus on the outer world and the world is the very moment that you take yourself off track of your spiritual path, and you lose time, which then can bring you back here into this sphere, this earth. Many say they are not coming back, but many don't understand that the distractions are what is happening outside of you. The real qualification is happening inside of you. So just remember that. And so basically, this is what this actual key is for this release of these energies which are coming in throughout this full moon, because it's all about releasing. So, okay, so keys, mantras. You can recite a mantra, 108 beads. You can also burn incense. You know, the best scent which is associated with this Gemini energy is dragon's blood. Dragon's blood will help to dissolve, because it's all about this kind of ritual which helps to remove some of these mental tensions. Frankincense, myrrh is probably more of a scent that you want to burn as opposed to frankincense, because it's about dissolving the old. Purification is associated with Rudra. So this is one of the keys you can utilize. It's all to do with the mind. So anything connected to speaking or thinking or even analyzing and intellectualizing is also associated with that. It is also a time to bring certain opportunities because it's also connected to Ganesha in so many words. But this one is an intellectual one. So your intuition may actually rise and build during this time also. So you can connect with that and create something or even write what it is that you want to release. You know, you don't always have to say it, you can write it. Or you can internalize it because it also deals with that. Now, it is also great for meditation work because it is at the source and it also governs the North Pole. And so you want to focus at the center of your third eye, your pineal gland, and go deeper into that spectrum, and, purify the thoughts that are in there because it all deals with the intellect. Short-term education is associated with that, but it will give you the insight because Mercury is in Sag, which brings out higher qualities in this placement. I would like to go deeper, but I will just leave it for now. And I'll see you next year because we're going to be breaking down some powerful stuff, especially with what is occurring. And obviously, if you want to have a New Year reading and know what's happening for you for the New Year, then we can do that. We can do a whole year transit. You can check the website link and we can go straight into that. Okay? Thank you so much. Peace.